Okay, well, hey folks, welcome. We'll see if anyone else trickles in while we're here, but might as well go ahead and get this going. If you don't know me, my name is Blake Longfellow, and I am a director of forensics at Diablo Valley College. 3 years ago, I started a company called Hired Judge, and then today I'm here to talk to you about the Professional Speech and Debate Association, which is kind of the next extension of Hired Judge and the work that we've all been doing in speech and debate. I think many of us have thought for years that we wish there would be a professional division of this league or of this activity, something for people to continue on with after high school or after college. And for some, that might be what this is. There's many other people that I meet that never did high school or college speech and debate, wish they had, and this is also meant for them. So they can get that experience, develop those types of professional skills, oral communication skills, critical thinking skills, and then hopefully one day make it into the professional divisions. That's why we have two adult leagues. We have adult, which is 18 plus, and then we have professional, which is also 18 plus, but if you win regularly in adult, you're required to move up to pro. And then we're also doing K through 12 speech and debate. So offering one tournament a month every Saturday, the first Saturday of every month. And that tournament runs from about 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time till 4 p.m. and offers just 4 events. So that's impromptu, public address, interpretation, and debate. The debate format that we're using is SPAR, or spontaneous argumentation, which is about a 10-minute debate. And so speakers go back and forth in 2-minute speeches back and forth, and then get ranked similar to a speech round. So there's actually 3 debates per room with 6 speakers, and then judges rank them 1st through 6th, the same way you do in a speech round. You would be ranked 1st through 6th in this debate format SPAR. So it's really approachable, short, accessible, so that way anybody, even if you never did debate back in your competing days, you should still be able to hang, because it's really actually more similar to public speaking, and is getting away from the technical aspects of debate and focusing on the communication skills. That way it's actually usable in your day-to-day life at Thanksgiving or around the water cooler. The other questions that I've been getting are around interpretation and public address. You can use the same topic 2 seasons in a row. So that way, if you wanted to compete in the fall and then again in the spring, and use that same topic throughout the whole year for your other speech and debate organizations that you're a part of, and then still use it in the PSDA, you can. But we do have 2 seasons within 1 year. So this first season runs now, starting in July through December. And then the second season is going to run January through June. And then season 3 will be next July through December. So 2 seasons a year, 1 tournament a month, every month, with just those 4 events, 5 different divisions. We have over $25,000 in cash prizes that we're giving away in season 1 alone. And if the league is successful and continues to grow, those cash prizes will also expand. We are seeking sponsorships to continue to expand cash prizes. Especially for the pro division. We hope to make that a meaningful chunk of money for winning that division. The other questions I've got about going back to public address and interp, we don't have any restrictions the way that a lot of other leagues do. So if performers want to use a book, they can, but they are not required to. If they want to use props, they can, but they are not required to. So in terms of our rules, we view the black book or black binder that's popular in college speech and debate as another prop. And so you may choose to use it, you may not, and you may use props, you may not. Likewise with costumes, you may use costumes and you may not. Now, I don't think that those will necessarily be successful competitive strategies, but that's kind of up to the market of judges to decide, and up to the competitors to decide what this new league is. So trying to do a lot of different things. For instance, we allow internet is allowed to be used at any time in any event, which is another big break from other traditional forensics formats. So even in the middle of a debate, if you want to fact check your opponent and you want to use your time that way, that's allowed. Likewise, you can use it during prep, and you can use it in the middle of a public speaking, or in the middle of an interp round, if that's a part of it. So all of that is fair game in this league. And if we down the line decide that those rules need to be amended, we'll amend them. And I think that's another strength of the PSDA and what we're trying to do, which is that we can change rules quickly without having to work in 1 or 2 year cycles the way that a lot of traditional forensics organizations are. So a lot of traditional organizations have to wait until the annual meeting with all members of the organization there to vote, and then that it takes a year to go into effect, and then a year later you decide if you want to keep the rule or not. Whereas in the PSDA, every 6 months we have a new season, and the tournament director of that season is in control and can decide to change rules if we decided that it wasn't working last season. So a lot of things that we can do much faster, and we're much more flexible and adaptable, I think, than traditional forensics organizations. I am the founder of the PSDA, but I will not be the tournament director. So we are hiring Tui Pham from Mount San Antonio College, if anyone knows her. She is very organized and very kind and very fair in my experience with her, and I think she will be a wonderful tournament director. So it's actually up to her what the rules are for season 1 and season 2, how those things change. And then for tab director, we have Aaron Folman, who's here today. He will be our director of tab for season 1, and then hopefully beyond if he decides to stick with us. Likewise, season 1 has 6 tournaments. So I mentioned the first weekend of every month, and it's just on Saturdays. But we are adding more tournaments quickly. Starting in September, we'll have a China division. So there will be supplemental tournaments running on Chinese time zones. That way, it's at a reasonable hour for them. US participants can compete in that tournament, and likewise, participants in China can compete in PSDA US. In fact, in the first tournament on July 10th, we already have one registered coming from China. Now, he is a US expat who lives in China, but we do expect a lot of cross-pollination between those two speech and debate worlds, and we hope to kind of bridge that gap. So we're running online tournaments in the US starting in September. We'll have online tournaments in China, and then by season 2, starting next January, we hope to have in-person tournaments running in the Los Angeles area. So lots going on. I feel like I've been talking for a while, and this is meant to be about what questions you all have. So it seems like a decent time to open it up for any questions that have popped up or that are unclear. These could also just be things that you think should be on the website, and we can get those updated today. So so far, is there any questions coming to mind that I can answer for folks? Okay, if any come up, go ahead and write those in the chat or just hit the raise hand and I'll circle back. A couple other exciting things. So the entire, let me back up a little bit and give background on the whole ethos of what we're trying to do here. I've been in speech and debate since like 2004. To my understanding, the best I can tell, 2008, 2009 was the peak of speech and debate competition. That's the largest that most organizations ever were. And we've been in a steady decline since 2008, 2009. And I believe that's because the film The Great Debaters came out in 2008. And because of that, our activity became much more visible. People saw what we did, saw it in a cool light, and then decided to participate at the high school or college level. So I believe that we have a visibility problem. I believe that speech and debate as a whole is not visible in the public. And that doesn't even mean that everyone needs to be participating in speech and debate, but it's absurd to me that most people don't know what we do, right? For instance, the team that I coach, we participate in 15 different events, only 3 of which are debate. The other 12 are speech events, and yet most people I meet have no idea that the speech side of things even exists. They only think of debate. And even then, they only think of what they've seen in presidential debates, not necessarily what we actually do. And so I think we have a visibility problem. I think that our activity as a whole needs to be much more visible. And so this league is designed to solve some of the problems with traditional forensics that have prevented us from being more visible. So for instance, we're going down to 40-minute rounds. There's only 4 competitors per room. And in speech events, that would mean 40 minutes or less. And what that does is allows us to have a TV show or a documentary where rounds run in 40-minute or 20-minute spots. Likewise, debate is becoming much more accessible, shorter, easy for the audience to follow along. We're having much more accessible topics, and that's meant so that way it could be on ESPN and run the same way that the Spelling Bee does, or the College Bowl is coming back now. And we hope to kind of fit into that niche. So the league, as it's designed, is with the goal of trying to make all of this much more accessible to the public, make it something that regular people who never competed in speech and debate might want to watch, and then hopefully one day enroll their kids into and join their high school or middle school team or even college team. There's some other challenges of the speech and debate world that we're looking to solve. So most of these forensics organizations are sitting on large sums of money, and in my opinion, that money needed to have been used in the last couple of years. We've been seeing a decline across most forensics organizations. I think that money is there for a rainy day, and this is it. But at a bigger picture than that, I believe that it's a failing that we don't have lobbying interests in DC. And that basically in this country, if we want an increase in K through 12 funding, we need to be lobbying the government. And I think that's the role of forensics organizations to pay for that, to collect fees from their tournaments in order to fund paying for a lobbyist. But that's not really happening. And that is something that the PSDA is committed to doing, that we plan to direct profits towards funding and towards grants for new programs. That way, we're reinvesting in the health of forensics overall, which in our hopes means that eventually there will be even better talent funneling into the PSDA, making an overall even more competitive league. There's some other interesting stuff around membership perks that we're working on, and AI and some other interesting stuff, but we don't got to go too far down that rabbit hole just yet, especially because that's a ways away. So David has a question in the chat, which is about when are we planning on having in-person tournaments? So let me first say that we'll always run the online division. The online tournaments, both in the US and in China, will continue to run. And then season 2, which starts in January, would be the first one to have in-person tournaments. And that's the one that we are talking to some contacts at Netflix and other friends in the media industry about trying to have some sort of a documentary made about season 2. Will the in-person tournaments have an online element, or will they be separate? They'll be separate. So there will be season 1 online US, or sorry, there'll be season 2 online US, season 2 online China, and then season 2 in-person LA. And across all of those, if you win a bid to the championship, you would, or across all those, if you win any individual event, you would get a bid to the championship, which would be at the in-person one. We'll still run an online championship, but that would be separate from the in-person championship, which is where long-term, when there's in-person LA, in-person SF, in-person New York, in-person Dallas, wherever, in the long run, all of those in-persons would funnel into a championship tournament that's also in person. Hope that answered that question for Evan about online elements, or are they separate? So they're separate, but if you win an online tournament, you do get an auto advance bid to the in-person tournament if you would like. Good question, Evan. All right, probably a good time to open up for any other questions that might have popped up. We just had another member join us, so give him a chance to get settled. And if you have any questions, D. Jones, we'd love to hear from you. But we were just going over what season 1 looks like, what our plans are long-term for in-person and online tournaments in future seasons, plans for hopefully shooting a documentary in season 2 in conjunction with Netflix or another media partner. Justin asked, where might they take place? And I assume you're talking about the in-person tournaments, which season 2 would just have in-person in LA, and we would probably be renting a college. So renting rooms from a community college is currently the plan. There's a possibility that we go to a hotel tournament model, but that becomes complicated for a bunch of other reasons. So most likely we'll be running on a school campus. Okay. Well, beyond that, we are running the tournament on forensicstournament.net. And the reason for that is because it doesn't require registration or logins for the users. So that way we'll run all the tournament on the back end. So that way, those of you, if you plan to compete, you just register, we'll take care of everything else. And then you just receive an email from forensicstournament.net leading up to the tournament with the instructions. And then when the tournament starts, you'll receive an invitation to your round. And you just click the link, go to your round, judge judges you, and then you leave the room. So you never have to create an account on forensicstournament.net. You certainly can if you want to, but you don't need to. And that was the goal here, is to try and remove some of the gatekeeping that happens in forensics. So another one of my concerns with traditional forensics models is that You have to be enrolled at a college or at a school in order to participate, or you have to pay a coach in order to enter you in the tournament and to judge for you. And so we tried to take those elements out of it. So that way now, if I was a parent and I had some children that I thought would benefit from participating in speech and debate, I could just register them at PSDA or prosda.com. And then my students are entered and they can compete from there. They never have to create an account or have to learn what the names of all the events are or have to find judges to cover their entry. All the judging is included, which is another big break from traditional models. Traditional models of speech and debate always have biased judging, where you're bringing either parents, if you're in like K through 12, you bring parents to judge tournaments often who are very vested interests, right? They want the best for their children and for their children's friends. And at the college level, you have coaches who come and coach or come and judge, which also is a very vested interest, and to some degree even have their career on the line if the outcome of the tournament doesn't go their way. And so I just think that those are broken models. And I think that most of us are dissatisfied with those models of forensics. I think most of us have our issues with various judges and are tired of feeling like we're not getting a fair shake in this activity. And we're hoping to get rid of that. And in doing so, it allows us to do a lot of other really cool, interesting things. Because when you don't have judges that you have to be worried about whether or not they're going to judge unfairly, it allows you to open up a lot of doors in the way you run the tournament. What's up, Evan?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
So first off, thank y'all for what you're doing. Phenomenal idea. Love everything about this. The question,
Thanks, man.
that comes to mind is specifically regarding what you were just talking about for judges. In terms of like bringing judges in, is it going to be mainly people with a forensics background? Is it going to just be anyone from anywhere? Like, how are y'all planning on avoiding some of the norms from like K through college forensics coming over while also having qualified judges?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's something that we are still tweaking how we're going to go about it. So here's where we're at is all judges are sourced through Hired Judge, which does have a mostly forensics background judge pool. There are some people in the Hired Judge network who don't have a forensics background, but the majority of them do come from forensics. So we're going to start by trying to balance for regional diversity and making sure that we're having judges from multiple different regions. That way it's not just Southern California judges or just East Coast judges or what have you. Second, balance for forensics background. So it's not just college judges or just NSDA judges or just Model UN judges or whatever. Trying to balance that so there's a lot of different perspectives and there's not one set norm that gets carried over. And then long term, we want to bring in more celebrity judges for finals, maybe politicians, maybe popular academics, and then also bringing in more of that lay audience that has expertise and work experience, but not necessarily the speech and debate background. So it is something we're concerned about. It's something that is going to take some fine tuning. But that's one thing that I think will be a strength of this league is that after every tournament, we will review every ballot in the tournament to make sure that judges are giving high quantities of feedback and high quality feedback. And we will either be coaching those judges on how to become better judges, which is something that doesn't really happen. We coach everybody in this activity except for the judges. And we'll either be coaching them on how to do better the next time around, or we can replace them as well. In Hired Judge, we have about 1,200 judges nationwide. Especially for these online tournaments, we'll have our pick of the litter in terms of who we want judging. So trying to balance those things. And then long term, we'd also like to be able to balance it for other demographics, making sure that it's a fair gender balance of judges, making sure that there's a fair racial demographic balance of judges, which is again something that in traditional forensics models you can't do because it's just the luck of the draw of who the coaches happen to sign up as judges for that tournament or who happens to be on the team and their parents happen to sign up as judges. Whereas in this model, we can actually approach that with a much more conscious effort and try and balance all those different demographics to make sure it's a very fair and equitable judge pool. But I am with you, Evan, in that I don't want to carry over a lot of the speech and debate norms because, again, the whole goal here is to make something that would be popular on television, that could be watched on ESPN or watch a Netflix documentary. And I think a lot of the norms that we do in traditional speech and debate are off-putting to a lay audience. I think that they don't understand why we have speakers triangles in our public address speeches. They don't understand why we hold a black book in our interp events. They don't understand why we do flows in debate and all that type of stuff, right? So trying to break down some of those old models and create something new. And a big part of that is making sure that our judges aren't rewarding the same old norms from the traditional speech. So I have no doubt that it'll take some fine tuning, but I do think that by the end of season 1, we'll have the best judge pool in the country, without a doubt. All right, a couple other folks jumped in here while I was talking. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or just type it in the chat and I can answer. It looks like we just got one. Would you see this replacing college speech and debate? No. It is my hope that we build something new. It is my hope that we open up speech and debate to a whole new audience. I mentioned earlier how we hope to be an advocate for speech and debate as a whole, either through grants for funding new speech and debate teams or for funding lobbyists' interests in DC to increase funding for speech and debate. And so it is my hope that by increasing the visibility and funding for this activity, that a rising tide floats all boats and we see college speech and debate grow. And the other aspect of that is that we don't offer all the events. We offer 4 events. I think college speech and debate teams would benefit from participating in this league. But, you know, we just host 1 tournament a month. And I think that for many college teams, those organizations serve them very well. My own team, I coach a college team. We will not be competing. That's mainly to make sure that you all feel like you're getting a fair shake in this league. But I point that out to say that it's in my best interest that college speech and debate continues to thrive and grow as well, right? Because otherwise my students won't have anywhere to compete. Is there possibility for a bilingual or dual language events? That's a great question, JC. I do think there's some leagues doing really interesting things with that. Right now, our goal is to be as simple of a model as possible. That's why we went down to just 4 events. I would be open to doing, well, actually, let me think about that, because I mentioned earlier that we're doing a PSDA online version in China later in season 1. That would certainly not be in English, or I guess some of them will be competing in English. So I'll have to think about that a little bit, JC. Clearly, I haven't spent too much time thinking on that in particular, but I guess the answer is yes. If there is demand for it, ultimately what I envision the PSDA as is a tournament hosting company, that we are here to host high quality, well-run, impartially judged tournaments. And if there is a strong demand for bilingual or dual language events, or a tournament that is online but in Spanish, we can do that. And I'm certainly open to it. So let's put that on our notes as one to bring up in our meeting later, but I think that's a good idea. Yeah, so in terms of where college students fit in, I think that anybody with speech and debate experience should go, that is over the age of 18, should go straight to the professional division. When we created the adult division, it was envisioned to be for people that never competed in speech and debate to gain experience, build confidence, and then eventually move up into the pro division. But that's why it's the only division that has a restriction saying that if you win it multiple times, you have to move up to pro. I basically envision the adult division as like novice for 18-year-old plus. So if you're a college student and you're a novice in the college division, then you could be an adult. But I think if you're an open division in college leagues, you should probably be competing in professional. Is the initial plan to host tournaments exclusively online? Yeah, so we chatted a little bit about this earlier. We are doing online season 1 in the US. Later within season 1, we'll be doing online on Chinese time zones and doing online China. And then by season 2 is when we'll be doing in-person tournaments. So season 2 would be starting next January, and that would run through June. And we would be running in-person tournaments in the Los Angeles area. And so long-term, we plan to host online and in-person tournaments in multiple regions across the country. But right now, season 1 is all online. Season 2 is the first one when we'll have in-person tournaments. Yeah, and actually we are making that change, Evan. At the feedback that I received from a lot of the middle school and elementary school coaches is that just fifth graders competing with eighth graders is developmentally such a big jump, which I agree with. I used to work with that age group when I used to run children's summer camps. Fifth grade to eighth grade is night and day. We are breaking that into 2 divisions. And I believe on the website that should be reflected now. Perhaps it's not on one of the tournament pages, but I believe if you go into rules, that should be reflected now, showing that we do indeed have 5 divisions now. Yeah, with an elementary division. So that would be, elementary would be ages 10 and under, and then junior division would be ages 10 to 14, high school ages 14 to 18, and then adult and professional division are ages 18 and up. Good question, Evan. Okay, it looks like that's all the questions that are in the chat for right now. Aaron, is there anything that you feel like I haven't brought up that we wanted to touch on? We talked about why it's run on forensicstournament.net, being so that way users don't have to create their own account. And sorry, I'm just kind of retouching on a few points here since a few folks joined us late. It's on forensicstournament.net, so that way users never have to create an account if they don't want to. They just receive email invites. We talked about there being 2 seasons a year. The first one running this July through December. All of season 1 is online. And then season 2 is when we hope to be in person in the Los Angeles area. And then season 3 and beyond, we hope to be adding more in-person tournaments in the San Francisco area, New York, Texas, Florida, major metropolis areas, wherever there's demand for it.
Yeah, I do think that one of the things that we didn't touch on or talk about was the structure of the tournaments and why it was designed specifically the way that it was, in terms of the amount of people who are entered in every single section, how many judges we have per section, and why. Not necessarily like the specifics, because I know a lot of that is going to be changed over time for depending on what works and what doesn't, but just the idea around why we structured the tournament the way that we did is something that we didn't touch on.
Yeah, so the tournament structured the way that it is, and I'll get to your question, Briar, in just a second. The tournament structured the way that it is, first, so that way it is more accessible to the general public. So that way we are going to flatten the learning curve of speech and debate. You know, I see this every year coaching at the community college level. Students come in and I spend the first 3-4 weeks of the semester just trying to get their head wrapped around what all the different events are, what the skills each one teaches, which one might be interesting to them, get them to watch a couple videos, and then at some point, you know, they start to get over that hump. And I feel like most people's first year in this activity is just about trying to learn what the activity is. And it's not till your second year where you really start to get better at it. But so we structured the tournament in a way that anybody could walk in and basically understand what it is that we do, right? They understand public address, debate, impromptu, interp. 4 events, really simple to understand. And then we also, by going down to 40 minutes per round, and having impartial judging pools and all these other things, it allowed us to do something else really cool and innovative, which is that we'll be able to run every round on the hour, since they're only 40-minute rounds. So 40-minute round, 20-minute break, 40-minute round, 20-minute break, which is better than how most tournaments run, where it's an hour round, 15-minute break, hour round, 15-minute break. So trying to give students a little bit more downtime, and then also run things in a tighter schedule overall, which of course is increasing the demand for judges. But you know, I think that that comes with the territory, and we're trying to run a great tournament, so that's fine. And that allows us to run our tournaments in under 8 hours. That way, at the you know, if we're starting at 8 a.m., we're done by 4 p.m. is when the final round is over. And I think that is going to allow us to run really quick tournaments that anyone can see fitting into their life, no matter how busy they are. On a Saturday, you're done by 4 p.m. You can still have your Saturday evening, and so forth. So I can answer any more detailed questions about why the tournaments are structured the way they are. Let me start getting to Briar's questions in the chat. So he asked if or how many teams have signed up so far. So far, we have no team sweepstakes, which is interesting to me. I'm excited to see how many people will come for team sweepstakes down the road. It does not cost anything extra to enter into team sweepstakes. It's the cost of 5 students in all 6 tournaments. So right now, no one is entered in team sweepstakes. We only have entries so far in the professional division. And I think that makes sense, considering all of the K through 12 and higher ed just came off of a really busy, exhausting season. Most people aren't ready for a tournament in July ever, since nothing really starts up until September again. And so since this is new, since it only was 1 month notice, I'm not really concerned about entries for the first tournament. Down the road, the people that I'm speaking to, sounds like qualifier 2 will have a very healthy entry in the K through 12 divisions. We also, in the professional division, have a healthy entry in debate and impromptu. Likewise, since most adults don't have public address or interp events up yet, they are much smaller entries. I think there's one person entered in in interp and public address, and then debate and impromptu both have 5 entries each so far, which isn't a lot, admittedly. I would love to see a healthy entry, but again, since it's July, since it's a 1 month notice, and since we're doing something completely new, it's kind of amazing to me that people are registered at all. So I also expect to see a lot of people register here in the last couple of days. In every tournament I've ever run, everyone registers the week of anyway. So I'm not too daunted by the low entries. How far along are the potential partnerships for a documentary, as well as what privacy policies will you be using? So early conversations for potential partnerships for a documentary. Had a sit down with a producer from Netflix and discuss what it is that we're trying to do. She loved it. She pitched a lot of ideas, part of which was about privacy policies and social media policies to that effect as well, trying to make sure that when this league does become something that the public is familiar with, that members of this league are already aware of that and are comfortable with it, so that way we don't have any issues down the line. So right now we don't have privacy policies because it hasn't come up and we're just getting started, but certainly is something that needs to be fleshed out for anybody that would like to be a part of that documentary. For one more question, but I was really curious, are there detailed public rules posted for the debate portion? So the most detailed rules would be on the rules page, and I can link that right here in the chat. There you go. And that'll show all of the times for debates as well as the rules around it, but it is very open by design. So we want to allow competitors to have maximum flexibility for strategy, but also should say that we will be handpicking a judge pool that is qualified to judge all events. So they need to be able to judge interp and debate and public address and impromptu, which means that they need to be a well-rounded judge, which I think means that the audience that you are appealing to will be more lay and less technical debate friendly. So we're hoping to set things up in a way that technical debate is not necessarily rewarded in this activity, and it is more focused on the persuasive and argumentative aspects. And then how many entries are registered? We got to that one. Is there a place you're going to create to allow team building, like a recruitment form where people can search for individuals to join their rosters, / where can find teams, etc. Like I'm a free agent. How can I advertise myself to join a team? Good question. So the first one is that on the postings, we want to put team names next to your names, which in traditional forensics, it's kind of taboo to have team names on there because you're worried that maybe another team will have some sort of unfair bias against that team. But since we have unbiased judges, or at least unaffiliated judges, we can have team names because no one really has any vested interest in what team wins. So we'll have team names on the postings, and then anybody who's not on a team, it'll say free agents. That way, if you're in the round and you see, say you're in spar, you compete against someone and you think they kicked your butt and you see they're a free agent, you can go to them after the round and message them and say, hey, would you like to join us for qualifier 2? Likewise, teams can be formed in any time. So even if you don't have them up for the first tournament, if you would like to post it for, or get a team together for qualifier 2 and start scoring points, that'd be fine. I like the idea of having a forum so people can connect. I think that's probably something I could build pretty easily into the website as it is. So let me poke around and see what it would take to do that. Maybe it's just like a master roster, but I can't put people's phone numbers and emails out there unless they want it out there. So I'd have to, yeah. Let me think about it and figure out what the right way to do that is. But I think that would be pretty cool. Couldn't this free agency allow for the creation of super teams as we see in sports leagues without a salary cap? Yep. And I hope it happens. I think when that happens and we think the league is broken, we can come back around and create a policy to maybe fix that. But I think until we have super teams and people are feeling that it's unfair, I think we can let it go. The other aspect about that is that it's only 5 people. And while there are speech gods and debate gods, there's more than 5. And I think that, if we had really healthy participation from some of the most elite talent that's ever competed in speech and debate, I think that'll attract more elite competitors, which will lead to other super teams. Because I think there's always someone out there with a bigger ego who thinks they can beat that super team. So I say go for it, Evan. I say go get together your super team and break the league and make us have to revisit that policy. But for now, yeah, super teams are not only allowed, but encouraged. That is right. There are only 2 minutes per speech. So 2-minute prep, then a 2-minute affirmative, 2-minute negative speech, a 2-minute cross sex where they can go back and forth, then 2-minute aff, 2-minute neg. I don't know that we saw an increase after any of those, because I also didn't see any of those. And I don't think any of them were released in theaters or had the kind of backing of Denzel Washington and Oprah Winfrey that the Great Debaters had. Great Debaters was a huge commercial success. I don't know that any of those were anywhere comparably commercially successful. I believe they're only released on Netflix. So, I mean, maybe my theory on it's wrong, but I do believe that increasing the visibility of our activity will bring more interest to our activity, right? Like when we have to explain to people what it is that we do, right? Many of us say, oh, it's kind of like gymnastics, or it's like swimming, or it's like track and field. And that's crazy that we have to compare it to activities that also people don't do. Like those people also aren't doing gymnastics or swimming or track and field, but they know what the events are called and they know what they do. And that's part of our problem, is that we should be at least in the conversation of track and field where people know what the events are that we do and what generally it looks like. What do I think has led to the decline in forensics? I do think a lot of it has to do with tying ourselves to K through 12 structures means that we're always at the mercy of administrators and funding, which means that each teacher or each coach is basically left to their own devices to try and advocate for their own program. And they're already overworked academics who don't have the time to do that extra work. And I just don't think that we've set things up to have the right incentives for that. And so part of that is that we shouldn't be putting that work onto the coaches to try and grow programs and to expand teams. We should be putting the work onto the administrators, right? And putting the work onto the lobbyists to go to DC to get more funding. So that funding's coming to the school and the administrator says, hey, the CARES Act came out and it said that because your activity moved online really well this year, when like think about it, in a year when all these other extracurriculars weren't happening, when football and basketball and swimming and wrestling couldn't meet and all these high school kids were sitting around with no other extracurriculars to be participating in, and speech and debate moved online pretty well. Obviously I prefer in-person forensics, but I think it moved online pretty well. We should have seen an increase in participation in speech and debate this year. And yet across the board, we saw a decrease. And I think that is in part due to a lack of lobbying, that I think that we didn't have anybody looking out for our interests at a big level that said, hey, speech and debate's still competing this year. Let's have some of that CARES Act funding that's allocated for education to go towards making sure every school can run a speech and debate team if they want to, so they can still have that extracurricular going this year. And so I think that there's a lot to it. I think a big part of it, though, is that we are tied to academia, and that means that we get caught up in a lot of bureaucracy, which means that we can't adapt quickly and can't meet market conditions, and everyone has their own interest about how we change rules, which means that we don't really change rules in the best interest of the activity. We change them in the best interest of our own team. And so I got a lot of, I like all things, I think it's nuanced, Evan. I don't think that there's any one thing that's led to the decline in forensics, but I do think that something has to change. I think that the traditional model isn't working, and I don't think it's going to adapt quick enough to save itself. I think that we got to try something new. Can we be a competitor and also a judge in an incapacity? The answer is yes, that you can be a competitor and then become a judge afterwards, and you can be a judge and then become a competitor afterwards. That as of right now, is an open revolving door. We don't have any policies around that. I think if we see for some reason that has broken the league in some way, we can create a policy in the future. But right now, that is completely open. As far as doing both simultaneously, no, because the ethos of the league is that the judge pool has zero interest in the outcome of the tournament. I think, again, most of us have been to tournaments where we don't feel like we or our students got a fair shake. Either the judges had some sort of bias against our team or against our students in particular, or the tab room, there's like talk of them cheating or something like that. I think most of those things are overblown, but I don't think it changes the fact that we often walk away from tournaments feeling dissatisfied and feeling like we weren't given a fair opportunity. And so we are trying to create a league where everyone can feel like they got a fair shake, which to me means that you cannot be a competitor and judge simultaneously, but certainly can go back and forth. Adults could compete in pro division and then later judge in the same division. You're saying they compete in pro and then at a later tournament come back as a judge? As of right now, yeah. Is there a reason you see a problem with that, Evan?
Is it okay if I talk that way? It's just save the.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern is that I think it kind of leads to some of the, for lack of a better expression, incestuous behavior that we see in like K through college competitive speech, where like you have a vested interest in the people that you competed against, either for because you like them or you don't.
Yeah, that's interesting that they could be competing and then now they do have even though they didn't coach them, they don't have any like actual vested interest in the outcome of the tournament. They do now have a kinship or friendship with the people they competed with.
Or they're just petty.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Well, what I do know is I want people to be, maybe we put a 1-year ban. I'm hesitant to create a rule out the gate because I don't want to discourage people from doing one or the other, right? I don't want people to say, oh, if I compete once, then I can't judge for 2 years. Or if I judge once, then I can't ever compete again. And I want to avoid that. But I see how that could be a problem, having people that competed against each other later be able to judge each other.
Or if I might chime in, like,
yeah,
because there's a financial interest, like someone who qualifies at tournament 1, they're already set for the octo round. They're judging the final round of the same event. Like maybe they give the 1 to a person that they feel most confident that they can beat in the next tournament.
I see what you're saying. I don't think we would. Okay, so definitely there should be a rule about for the rest of the season, right? That if you compete, you can't judge for the rest of the season. I see how that's a conflict of interest. If you auto qualify, you are allowed to continue competing in the future seasons or in the future qualifiers. So even though you already won a tournament and you got the auto qualifying bid, you can keep competing because you still may want that cash prize. And if that happens, the auto qualifying bid just disappears. And now there's more breaks at the championship tournament because there's fewer auto qualifying bids. But I see what you mean, that within the same season, that certainly wouldn't work. So we definitely want to ban on if you competed, you cannot judge this season. I see that. Do you think that would satisfy that concern, or is there more to it, Evan?
Yeah, I think that would do it. The thing I just put in the chat is about like, would lower division, like being able to judge lower divisions in the same year, like create the kind of incentive to judge that you're talking about while preventing the conflict?
Yeah, but team sweeps are across divisions though, and so they still would have a vested interest in the team sweeps potentially. And I'm not going to have any like shortage of judges, you know? And so I think I'll just go with a clean ban. If you judge in the same year, or if you competed, you can't judge the rest of that season. You can judge in a future season, but not that season. And maybe likewise, if you judge that season, you can't compete until the next season. Good questions, folks. I also hope to do one of these a month. I'm thinking the last Thursday of each month. Obviously, this is the first Thursday of this month, but in the future, I think we'll continue doing these on the last Thursday of each month, just as questions come up, and we can kind of have a roundtable about it anytime that people want to. In traditional forensics models, we have the one big annual coaches meeting, but that's when all the policies need to get voted on. Whereas this is meant to be more of kind of an open forum, since all the policies are created by the tournament director. So, good stuff, folks. I appreciate the feedback. Have a few folks dropping in right now. Let me see the question in the chat. Will there be sweeps per division once the entries are high enough? Of course, yes. Yes and no. I think this is actually a big question mark for me still, because I would like for like a family to be able to be their own team sweeps. I would love for like two parents to be able to enter in the pro division, and then they have 3 kids across the elementary, junior, or the elementary, middle school, and high school divisions, and them as a family be able to be their own team sweeps. I think that'd be pretty cool. Now, maybe that's something that never actually happens, and we decide that goal isn't worth sacrificing having team sweeps per division. I think most of us would like team sweeps per division, but as you noted in your question, the entries will have to be high enough to merit that first. All right, and Randall just dropped in. I believe, Randall, you're registered for Tournament 1, is that right?
Not yet, but we'll be in.
Oh, sweet. Who am I confusing you with then?
I have no idea because I'm unique.
Yeah. Oh, I see your email here. Okay. Oh, that's right. You're coming from Hawaii. That's right. I got you confused with a different gentleman, but
Yeah, that's why I'm late. I forgot the time differential.
yeah, no sweat. Well, Randall had expressed some interesting points that maybe others here are wondering about amateurism, and with our cash prize, how that may affect K through 12 students who live in states that may have rules around amateurism and not being able to be compensated for their academic work or their scholastic work. And so if there is anybody in that situation, we are more than happy to convert that cash prize into a scholarship that's awarded when they graduate and move on to college, or to award the cash prize in a different way that may work for you, or to roll it over for entry into future tournaments. That way, you don't have to pay for the next qualifier or the next season. That can come out of your winnings from previous seasons and previous tournaments. So a few question marks there to work out. We also are looking at alternative prizes for those lower divisions. I don't know. I know when I was in middle school or elementary school, a little bit of cash went a long ways and got me excited. But I do think that there's other interesting awards that we can be giving for people there. Maybe create a cross division. I like that idea, and I do think that's probably what it's going to end up being, Evan, is I think that there's going to be within, like, hopefully once the entries are big enough to merit it, there's going to be team sweeps by division, and then there'll probably be a team sweeps across divisions. But all of that's going to be reflected on the website. That's another thing that I think will be fun about this league, is being able to track indie sweeps and team sweeps throughout the season. You score individual and team sweepstakes at every qualifier throughout the season, so you have an incentive to go to every tournament if you can. And then all of that adds up, and we'll have graphs and rankings and whatnot on the website, so you can follow that throughout the season. I assume the recent NIL change for college athletes makes this whole process easier. Yeah, certainly for adults, I don't think we have as many concerns. And since there's no school affiliation, any college competitors who are registered in pro division don't necessarily need to be affiliated with their school. So if there was an issue about that in the past, we could have worked around it. But certainly the Supreme Court ruling on athletes being able to receive sponsorships and compensation is going to make cash prizes a little bit smoother. But the reason for the cash prizes is going back to about wanting to create an adult division and a pro division. And I don't know. I know by the end of my speech and debate career, winning a trophy didn't really do it for me anymore. Wasn't very exciting. I also know that as a community college coach, every semester I have students who can't be a big part of our team because they have a job, right? They never get to go to state or nationals just because they have to work, because a tournament takes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they work in a restaurant and they can't work any of the big nights where they make their money, or we're away at a tournament, or the tournament goes until 8 p.m. So even if they are home on that Saturday night, they still can't compete. So that's why we're trying to have the tournaments done by 4 p.m. so you can still go work your 4:30 or 5 p.m. shift in a restaurant or wherever you work on a Saturday if you want. That's why it's just one day. So that way it's not a huge part of your week or your month. It's one day a month. And that's why we have cash prizes. So that way those who are putting in the work and are taking this activity seriously are hopefully rewarded for that. And as the league grows, as more sponsorships come into the league, we will be expanding those cash prizes beyond just first place. So that way those making the finals also receive something. And, if it grows to bigger and bigger, then further down to semifinals and quarterfinals and so forth. I just think that's fair. I think people are going to put their time and energy into this league, and a Google Drive attachment with a certificate doesn't always cut it. Doesn't always make it worth it for people, especially for working adults. What are the questions we got, folks? Or anything that you'd like me to repeat? Maybe you came in late and there's something that you think I probably mentioned or should have put it in the chat, but I'm happy to repeat anything. What's up, Evan?
Regarding team membership versus individual membership, I noticed that it's an exact ratio of like one individual membership for season 1 is 600, and thus 5 competitors would be 3,000. Do we see that team price either going down to incentivize more teams to come, or going up because the cost of teams requires the organization to give out more sweepstakes?
Right now I have no interest in raising it. I'd be open to lowering the price for the team sweepstakes if we thought that would encourage people to join in bulk of 5. I put it the exact price, so that way, say a bunch of you go to the first tournament and then see who else is there and say, oh, that's my team, and you want to add it on later. There's no extra cost. You just email us and say, hey, the 5 of us want to be a team now. We can add you into the team sweepstakes and all that. I'd be open to giving a small price break on that. There's just already such a big price break from the individual tournaments to the season membership. I know $600 is a substantial amount of money. It's not a small amount of money, but in terms of covering all the judge costs and the tournament costs and running it, it's not like we're making a ton of money, right? Until we get several dozen or 100 or so people competing in this league, we'll be losing money on this league. So I'm open to that if we think that would make the difference for folks. Sure. Also, I'm super open to anybody who's like, hey, I want to be a part of this. I can't really afford the full thing. Just message me or email me. We'll work something out. I'd much rather have people be a part of it and have season 1 be a really positive experience than anything else. So if you think that would make the difference, Evan, I'm super open to having a small cost break on the team membership, or if there's anything else that you think might incentivize more entries, I'm open to it. But certainly not trying to cost more right now for team sweepstakes, which was the other part of your question about, since it has its own sweepstakes award, do we see it having extra cost? Nope. All right. Well, I think I'm going to put a 5-minute timer on this, and unless we have some more questions come up and we can keep it running. Because the season starts in July, we are allowed to run altered versions of a speech that was up in May/June. Doesn't even need to be altered. Anything that you competed with last season is still fair game in this league. We have no rules about that. So you can compete with something that was up last season. And then by qualifier 2 or 3, when you have new material for the next season, start using that. But you can use material for any 2 seasons in a row, any 2 consecutive seasons, which I think for most people will be odd numbered season followed by even numbered season. But with this beginning, certainly can enter in qualifier 1 with material from last spring. So that way you can get going. Do you plan on streaming this anywhere? Twitch, YouTube, etc., or just thinking television and the Netflix documentary? The answer is both. So we are definitely going to be streaming final rounds on YouTube, hoping to stream that to Twitch as well, if we can figure out how to get a big enough following there to make that worth it. And then long-term vision, looking for television and Netflix documentary. But finals of qualifier 1 on July 10th will be streamed on YouTube. So because this is season 1, anything can be run the first 2 seasons because nothing has been run in this league yet, right? Yeah. That is fair. What does sponsorship look like? So if someone wanted to sponsor the league, they would get their logo on our homepage. They would also receive a post on our social media. That includes PSDA and the Higher Judge social media, which Higher Judge has a little bit bigger of a following right now. And then at the award ceremonies for each qualifier, that sponsor's name would also be mentioned in conjunction with making this whole thing possible. Ultimately, the cash prizes come from the sponsorships. That's what the sponsorship funds go directly towards, is subsidizing those cash prizes. And so as the cash prizes are awarded, the sponsors company would be mentioned, or sponsors organization rather, would be mentioned there in the awards and directly tied to that cash prize by name. I think there's one other perk of sponsorship that I can't think of right now. Let me double check. Facebook, yeah. But just promoting on social media, year-round branding on our, or season-long branding on our website, and then recognition at awards are kind of the 3 big tenets of sponsorship, along with the link to your website from our website. Which for season 1 is just $500, folks. Sponsor the awards of any pro division cash prize for just $500. And then long term, I'm hoping LinkedIn. LinkedIn would be my best case scenario for a sponsorship. Unfortunately, it's not a tax write-off. We are not a 501c3 nonprofit, and so sponsorship would not be considered a tax write-off. Do I care who sponsors me? I don't know. I don't want any evil organizations. You know, we don't need the money that bad. But I'm trying to think who I would draw the line at. What company I would draw the line at. Oh, big tobacco, no. Big pharma, no. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's a little bit better clarification. Thanks. No, I'm not really interested in that. I think that LinkedIn makes sense for us as a good partner. Ultimately, this is about skills building and small pharma. Depends what they make. Depends what medication they make, I guess. And if it's saving lives, sure. Ultimately, no. Like the sponsorships is one aspect of what we're trying to do, but it's so peripheral to the core of what it is that we're trying to do that I don't see us needing to sell our soul for big pharma and big tobacco sponsorships. Red Bull and takeout pizza should be all over this. I agree. I've been making that joke for like a decade, that every time you see like Red Bull ads or Red Bull like vending machines, it's always like people on a bike and people swimming and running, and it's like it should be people studying in a library, because that's who's doing Red Bull, and people playing video games. Or Jimmy John's. Yeah, man. Jimmy John's was the diet when I was in college doing speech and debate. We didn't have an option, and I hated Jimmy John's. I liked it at first, but I got forced to hate it because we had to eat it at every single tournament. Aaron knows. We were on the same college team.
Jimmy John Slims, man. It's basically just bread and like one slice of meat. Have fun, man.
Bread, one slice of meat, maybe cheese.
Mhm.
Oh, what?
And if you're vegetarian, it was literally just bread. That's just here's a cut piece of bread for you.
Bread and mustard.
Mhm.
If you buy a season membership but don't attend every tournament, can the money roll over to next season? The answer is no. I think if something happened, like let's say you had a car accident and you were no longer able to compete this season, we could work with you and try and roll that over. But as a point of policy, my answer would be no. Because there's already 2 free tournaments included with that season-long membership. The reason that we did that is assuming that people will miss one, just with the way people's lives are and schedule, that most people won't be able to attend every single tournament each season. So it's kind of part of that model. Again, open to other arguments for it, but I just think from where we are trying to run this thing and not go broke, I think I gotta say no to that one. All right, folks. Well, I really appreciate everyone showing up and throwing out a lot of good feedback, a lot of good advice on where the league should be headed. I like the rule that we came up with about the ban on judging in the same season after competing. I think this was super productive. So I am going to commit now to doing this on the last Thursday of every month. So the last Thursday of every month at around 4 p.m., expect to have an AMA like this, and I'll promote it on my social media. And if you're not already, you should follow Pro Speech Debate on Instagram. Follow Pro Speech Debate on Instagram, and that's where you'll see posts about future AMAs or other information about the league. And I really hope to see you all either at Qualifier 1 or Qualifier 2. And if anyone is concerned about price, and if that's the reason that's keeping you from competing, message me. Let's work something out. I would much rather have you there and be a part of what we're trying to do than to let money be the reason not to compete. Another question from Evan. What's up?
Yeah, I appreciate you taking them, by the way. In terms of like, if you're doing multiple or all 4 events, is the practice going to be similar to like forensics now in terms of just double entry?
Quadruple entry. So we're running everything in one pattern.
Right.
And that sounds a little daunting until you remember that impromptu is only 7 minutes. And so it's not a full 10-minute speech. And that spar is just technically like a 5-minute speaking per debater, because you have 2 per 10 minutes. And all that's preset what order you'd be going in, because it's speaker 1 and speaker 2 face each other, speaker 3, 4, speaker 5, 6. And also that we have a 20-minute gap in between rounds to account for any rounds that run over a little bit, as opposed to traditional forensics that usually runs with a 15-minute gap between rounds. And so the simple answer to your question is yes, you will be quadruple entered, just like in traditional forensics where you would perform at the rounds that you're slotted to go earlier in first and then go to the other ones. The big difference here is spar, in that if you are speaker 1 or speaker 2 in spar, even if you're speaker 1 in public address or interp or impromptu, you got to go to spar first, because the whole thing kind of rests on that. So I think that'll take some education on the part of the competitors in the league, and we'll make sure that that's clearly communicated in the welcome email next week. But I don't foresee a problem schedule-wise. We've run a bunch of simulations there of what we think that's going to look like simulation-wise in terms of schedule-wise. I don't think we're going to have any issues. All right. Well, cool, folks. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And some of you that I don't know, how tall are you? How did you come to be so tall? Can I grow up to be as tall? Who is D Jones? I'm trying to figure out who that is. I am 6'7". That is because my father is 6'5" and my mother is 5'11", and I am taller than my dad. You too can grow up to be as tall as me if you get a taller dad. So if you're already born, don't know what to tell you. That's going to be hard, but that is, can I adopt one? I don't think it works like that. Okay, gosh. It always becomes about the tall thing, man. I'm trying to talk about speech and debate and this thing that we're doing, and people just want to talk about the tall thing. I'm not a piece of meat, people. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. I hope to see you all soon. I hope to see you all next week for qualifier 1. Feel free to message me privately on Facebook or email us at admin@prosda.com. Thank you so much. I hope to see you all soon. And thank you for coming out.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Blake, is this going to be linked anywhere so I can catch the first 40 minutes that I missed?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, I recorded it and I can link it on the website. So where the link was to watch this, I'll upload it there as a file that you can watch from the website.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.